Thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit of my story. The mic is going in and out, so
You can always grab that one too.
okay, we'll go wired. I don't see a countdown clock, so that's kind of dangerous.
10 minutes.
Thank you. Originally, when we started planning for this gathering, it was going to be a stand-up act. It was one of my teenage dreams to do stand-up. It took me 40 years of working up the courage to do it, and I got to do it at the Grove last November. And then, as we were discussing the format for this evening, someone got vetoed, so it turned into an interview. And then now, as I step on the stage, now it's a 10-minute monologue. So it's gone from spontaneous to spontaneous to spontaneous. And so this is unscripted and unprepared remarks, which is fine. I'm a podcaster. I've been podcasting for 10 years now. I tend to be a bleeding edge innovator. So that's how the creativity and mental health ties in. And previous to that, I've been on Twitter for 15 years, and someone did the research and found that I was the first person on Twitter in Orange County.
Wow.
And so it's documented on the internet. And then I've been blogging for 20 years, so my canvas is the internet. I use digital tools to create and use my voice and tell the stories of others. Mostly I tell stories of others because being Asian American of Chinese descent, we don't like self-promotion. But I also realize voice gives us life, words create worlds, and it all started back in Genesis 1. So we have a pretty good model. If we want to be godly, we want to be using our voice, we want to be creative. So thank you for being a part of this artist community where we can exercise our voices in all kinds of formats and canvases and colors or lack of colors or whatever else. I have a dozen people watching on the live stream because I'm part of a small group that met on Zoom that started when COVID started during the lockdown. And all of us were strangers. And the group continues to meet even today. So 3 years later, we have people all around the country, several from international, and actually the shirt I'm wearing is from Beverly in North Carolina. I don't know if she's still up, but she'll watch the recording. So thank you for Beverly for gifting me this beautiful orange shirt. So I'm kind of going reverse chronological, just for those of you that are linear. I'm non-linear and I'm low context, so I can jump around like crazy. And then I also have a support group for mental health that I've been hosting for 5 rounds now. So right before this gathering at 7, at 6 o'clock, I co-host a group called Living Grace. And so we've had 5 rounds of that. It's a workbook that's peer-led, and it's been phenomenal to see the life change that we could provide on Zoom as well as in person for people that struggle with mental health. You don't need to have an official diagnosis. You just want a safe place where to share your story and hear others, to know you're not alone. You can let your hair down, and it's kind of the 1 hour a week where I can just speak freely about feelings, and people listen empathetically, non-judgmental, and it's just relaxing, and it's wonderful. The other place I find safe is my therapist, so I meet my therapist every other week. Well worth the money, gives me another safe place, and those kind of 2 safe places I have to just relax. Everywhere else I have to be filtered and careful and watch out for cancel culture and all that. But I got here after 23 years ago being diagnosed with bipolar at the age of 35. Because I grew up in a traditional Chinese family, my default emotion during my childhood years and my teenage years and high school and then even college and even into seminary was just default of sadness. But I didn't know what depression was. I didn't have that checklist of 9. I didn't have people around me that said, you might need to go see a counselor and see if you could use some help. Plus, growing up in a shame-based culture, we didn't know what depression was, and seeing a counselor would be admission of weakness, losing face, admitting shame, and being for the crazy people. I was high functioning, I had good grades, and so there wasn't any warning signs, although occasionally I would want to say, hey, what's the meaning of life? Which made my dad very, very upset on this one occasion. So I made it all the way through college, seminary, got married to my wife 28 years ago, end of April. We just celebrated that. And then we're blessed to have a 26-year-old son, Jeremiah, who's on staff here at Saddleback, doing data analytics. So Saddleback's kind of a big church, so they have a whole team of people that crunch numbers so that the pastors and elders can manage all the 500 plus ministries, 18 campuses, I don't know how many services, 50 plus, and so on. And so we've been blessed to have a good family. But at the age of 35, after a difficult job transition, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder because my bottom fell out. I couldn't function. I had overwhelming negative thoughts. The dark clouds would just persist over my mind and emotions, and I couldn't find my way out. It was worse than quicksand. It was worse than the pit. I was just stuck. And it took over a year to recover to some semblance of functioning, but it would be a cycle of ups and downs. My cycles were about 2 weeks up and 4 weeks down. Fairly predictable. During the ups, I would sleep less, have more creative energies, think I could write 3 books in a week kind of energy, but couldn't do it. And then during the 4 weeks down, it looked more or less like depression. So for the past 23 years, with regular medication, therapy, some adjustments, along the way when I had extra stress, like moving from DC to Orange County in 2007, that was a stressful time. And then I had a psychotic episode in 2017. And so in California, they call that a 5150, which is code for a 72-hour mandatory hold in the psych ward. So never in my life did I imagine I would be inside of a psych ward for 72 hours. I was able to get out soon after that. People say that many people stay in the hospital for 5 days, 7 days, or so on, but I was pretty stable. But it still took me about 9 months of recovery. I had to readjust my medication, learn some better lifestyle things. Currently I sleep about 9 hours a night, not 10, 9 hours a night, plus an afternoon nap, and that gives me an anchor for what my body needs. So the way I determine how much sleep I needed is sleep and then wake up without an alarm. So that gave me a good rhythm, and try to keep that at a consistent time. And then a year after my recovery, God inspired me to start the Erasing Shame podcast. And so one of the things that Brene Brown, popular author about shame, said is that shame festers in silence. And so, well, I tapped into my creativity with digital tools. I said, well, the opposite of silence is honest, healthy conversations. And for us as Asian Americans are 3 times less likely to get mental health help. Young adult Asian Americans between the ages of 15 to 24 have the highest suicide rate. And those are just kind of the 2 talking points that we've been using to raise awareness for the desperate, urgent need for Asian Americans. And in Asia, in Japan and South Korea, they have the highest suicide rates of developing countries. So it's a global crisis, and it's a particularly intense crisis for Asian cultures because of shame, because many Asian cultures don't have language for shame and mental health. Chinese language alone has 113 terms related to shame. That's more than Eskimos have for snow. So we're well saturated in shame, and I'm the creative with no budget, so I don't know how to do fundraising, but I know how to be creative. And so I'm using digital tools, finding ways to get our stories of healing, get our stories of hope out on the internet, and it'll reach people here in the U.S. and around the world. So Erasing Shame is a weekly podcast. We're at 130 episodes now, and people find hope, people that I invite to share their stories. I don't need the experts sharing stories, they already have the mic. So I want everyday people sharing their story, and I've had a handful of people share their stories for the first time in public, unedited, on a podcast, and they feel that sense of relief. Wow, I've held that story by myself as a burden for all these years, and now have a place to share. And so we're creating a new space, and then just last summer, a friend of mine who has 20 years of fundraising experience is helping me take that step on, well, how do we fund this and accelerate this to reach 9,000 churches that are Asian or Asian Americans in America? Is that me?
No, it's me.
Okay. Well, I'm finishing up. I'm on my last minute.
You can switch mics if you need to.
Okay. So, Christian Asian Mental Health is the ministry I'm part of launching now. When we go to the panel, I'll go grab a brochure so at least you can see it. And so that's just launched as of the first of this year. And we have a very simple, lean, startup, fast-moving strategy. So I'm talking with churches around the country. I've had a dozen I'm in conversation with, 4 I'm in active partnership with, co-creating a mental health strategy for each of their churches. And so the framework is very simple. If they would do 4 S's, it'll change the culture of the church to be safe and inviting for people who struggle with mental health. The 4 S's are sermons, stories, seminars, and support groups. And these 4 things provide the continuum of care that complements what therapists and medication does. And so that's our big dream. Pastor Rick always says your dream's not big enough, like he's around pastors, so God kind of stretched me a bit. Okay, 9,000 churches in America that are Asian or Asian American is pretty ambitious. That's more a lifetime goal. But there's 2 billion Asians in Asia. And then someone tweeted, because I'm pretty active on Twitter, someone tweeted saying, actually Steve's friend from Pasadena that I just met, they tweeted, mental health is the greatest mission field of the 21st century. So if Lord willing, maybe it could be part of finishing the task. Thank you for letting me share.